I'm Flora Wiegers, Chair of Special Projects for Arpa International Film Festival. On behalf of our charismatic and graceful founder, Sylvia Minassian, our mesmerizing jury liaison, Sonia Keshishian, and our energetic and remarkable director, Maral Kazazian, and the entire amazing Arpa team, I would like to welcome you to the 24th Arpa International Film Festival. This year again, we are streaming 70 movies from 21 different countries online on Eventive. And just a reminder that our festival ends on December 5th. I am so excited about conducting this Q&A session for the short documentary, My Name Is. It resonated with me strongly, not only because of my own immigrant experience, but because of the work I've done for 30 years in anti-bias, cross-cultural sensitivity, and discrimination prevention training. The stories I've heard and the scenarios and cases that I have read about how important this topic is and how sensitive this topic is. Our special guest today is Tony Giroux, the director of My Name Is. Tony, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Flora. I'm very excited to be here.
To start, please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So my name's Tony Giroux. I was born and raised in France. And I moved to Canada, to Vancouver in my teens. And then my first introduction to the arts was through dance, which was a very diverse environment, that had so much passion for craft. And then as I got older, then I got into acting, and then I ended up going to drama school in London in my late 20s. And there is where I actually kind of naturally fell into filmmaking. And where this project, My Name Is, kind of came from. I had done little video things, or I was always fascinated with storytelling, but this kind of fell in my lap. The story, at least, fell in my lap. She was a professor doing a seminar, and she introduces herself, and she comes up to us. She says, "Hello, everybody. My name is Joe," and she's a middle-aged woman of Indian descent. And I think, oh, that's interesting. And then she quickly, through the introductions, tells us that she was born a first name Javeria, but in her teens was named by so much that she changed to Joe. And right away I thought, oh, I've never heard a story like that. So then I went down the rabbit hole, started asking her about it. And then that's where the project kind of erupted from. And then I went on about doing, other interviews, and really, really humbling experience to bringing forth the stories of these individuals, that they've been so vulnerable to share.
Yes. Well, you perfectly answered my first question, which was going to be what inspired you and how did you come across this topic? So let's move to the second question. You called the first part about our men, our past. Mm-hmm. The second act with Giroux, the new, and the third act with Javeria as a dilemma. Could you share a little bit about how you came up with these distinct titles?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I think, the way that Armin speaked about the issue, I think and the way that he carried the story, I think I could sense, a lot of what the past was like. And for him, growing up in a Caucasian environment, British Caucasian environment, and what that was like for him to carry that name at the time, him growing up, I think he was in the 70s. And it was really interesting to see, I think, the progression, or at least the history of where we were back then, in terms of name politics or name acceptance, and how much, the weight of what he talked about, how it was a label, to be labeled as a foreigner just because of your name. And then Giroux, who's in his mid or late 20s, I believe, I hear in the way that he approaches the topic, there's a certain practicality around the approach of his name, and of saying, oh, I just decided to change my, or to have a nickname D and have everybody call me that because it's easier to remember. And he even senses, that there is that quicker connection. And even when I was talking to him, questions were raised about, oh, am I actually erasing some of my identity by shortening my name? And so it was interesting to hear a younger perspective where maybe the microaggression that he went through were lighter. And he even ends with talking about, oh, what do I want to name my kids? Which I think nowadays I think is something that we think about. Like, okay, what is our child gonna have to go through in terms of through the name? And then I brought Javeria's episode as a dilemma of really kind of the past versus the new, and what she's gone through her transition. And it's been incredible that through the process of this film, as it's mentioned in the film, but she's reverted back to Javeria, and to her it really is about claiming that part of her identity that she had lost for 20 plus years.
Yes. I can see that, and it was wonderful, the diversity of experiences and different ways of experiencing it and dealing with it. When you're younger, you really want to fit in, and so you'll do anything, but as you get older, your confidence goes up, you're more grounded, and your identity becomes stronger. And so I'm so glad that Javeria decided at the end to claim back her name.
I agree. Yeah, and adding to that, it was interesting, how Dira Jim being younger, there is that sense of still, I think, caring about, fitting in, about creating an environment that is open to everyone. And I very much, knowing him personally, there is so much of that practice. And compared to exactly like you said, Armin and Javier, who are older, I think it becomes more important. Okay, this is part of my identity, and this is how I want to be treated.
Yeah, right. Did you have any personal insights or aha moments before, during, or after making this documentary?
Oh, I'm, so much. I don't know if it's an aha moment as much as they're just slaps in the face in terms of check-ins about, okay, what, myself, well, I'm mixed, I'm of mixed heritage, but I'm half French, so, half white. And I think growing up in France as well, I think I was, in a lot of ways, my education was privileged in terms of the gaze that I had, being a male of being half white. And when I started doing this project, at first I just thought it was really interesting, but then it really made me question, okay, how is it that I interact with the world? Am I, as the message of the film became clearer, I was thinking, how much do I practice that? To me, the film really, as much as it's about name biasing, to me, it's really about inclusivity, about respect, and diversity, celebrating of differences. And I was thinking, how much do I do that? And so it's been, the making of the film has been such a humbling journey that I'm so happy that I've gone on. But so I would say a lot of it, has been about, thinking like, oh, how often have I forgotten someone's name and then stopped approaching them, or just referred to them by, hey, how are you? And, and not realizing, like, oh, I'm taking part in making that person's identity smaller. And, and I think it's difficult. It just takes that extra 10 or 20 seconds of really taking it in. But for me, I don't know if it's an aha moment as much as it's been a lesson about, this isn't costing me that much to welcome this person into this space. So that's been a big takeaway.
Yes. Just a little bit of effort and asking, how would you like me to pronounce your name?
And I think
big difference.
And also I've embraced the fact that I'm gonna make mistakes. And, and with some people now, I try to be a bit more forefront about, oh, I'm so sorry, but can you remind me how to say your name? Not, 14 times, but, once or twice, because before I had a lot of shame from a receiving end too, if someone says my name and I don't remember it, being afraid of like, oh no, am I going to be stupid for asking someone that name again? But then realizing, no, it's just, differences. And I think it's okay to, to take that extra step to try and break those walls.
And people appreciate that. My married name is not non-Western. It's a Western name, Wiegers. But sometimes people just call me Wiegers. But sometimes they ask me, is it Wiegers or Wiegers? And I really appreciate that. And I say, thank you for asking, it's Wiegers. And if they mispronounce my name, Tony, now I correct them in a kind way, in a kind way.
Because they don't know.
They don't know. And exposure, they haven't been exposed, and it's nobody's fault. And so we need to model the behavior. So our names are very important. I was telling John, I used to do an activity called History of Your Name. On my first day in our workshop with adults, we would all sit around in a circle and people will share the history of their name. There's a story behind every name. Funny ones, like one student said, my dad named me after his favorite ex-girlfriend, but my mom didn't know about it, or but you learn about what names mean in different cultures. They have special meanings. So our names are really important. What are you hoping that viewers who watch this documentary would learn or would want to do more of? And I guess we just covered it. What do you hope to change when people watch this documentary?
I think it's around social awareness of the differences that another being carries. And that I think ultimately, I'll never know what it's like to be you, and you'll never know what it's like to be me, but maybe we can meet. Even if it's, I don't think it needs to be all the time. Sometimes there's just no time for it. You at the cashier or these little interactions. But I think we can make an effort to listen more, and to even, to hopefully respect each other more, and kind of constantly work towards curating a space that's more around, community, without it having to be, we don't have to be best friends, but just, okay, this is who you are, this is who I am, like, and this is where we meet. Because even, when you were talking about your name, I think what I want to do personally is to approach people and ask them, how would you like to be called? If sometimes they give me a certain name and it's not quite clear, and then, I didn't want to take the time to say, okay, then I can call you by your nickname, or, the pronunciation is this or that. And then it gives them, the agency to be seen.
Yes.
As much as, there's certain aspects about me when I meet someone that I say, no, this is important to me because I want to be seen for that. So,
I love it. I love that.
Taught me, I think, to hopefully take forward these little initiatives that take us, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, not to dedicate your life to it,
right?
But because we all got to live. But I think, to try and listen a little more if we can.
Yes, loved it. Were there any specific challenges in making this film? And if yes, what were they?
Was I, as a young, I would say, like a fresher filmmaker, it was just me on set. And I remember I had, I had 2 cameras set up, and then I was doing sound, and at the same time I was trying to do the interview. And, I laugh back at it now, but I remember just, sitting with my headphones and trying to do the whole setup, looking at the camera, and then, then running the interview. And, I think I'm a little bit, I went into it a little bit arrogant, thinking I can handle this on my own. It's a small project. But I think lesson learned in terms of on the filmmaking aspect, to have a team is incredible. And now the documentary, has a small team, and it's so incredible to be able to lean on other people.
If you hadn't told me that, I would have never guessed. So,
okay, good.
So kudos to you, bravo.
Good. I would say, on the technical aspect, I would say that was a challenge. And then I think also in the making of the film, something with documentary filmmaking, I want to make sure that the people feel that their story was honored. And I think so, there was a lot of second guessing, or even when the short film was done, I showed it to each individual, and like I very much had a sense of, is this okay? And it's difficult to figure out that fine line, being a director of a documentary, to say, okay, this is the vision that I have of the project, but yet I want to fully honor this person, and how did those two meet? So that, I would say that was a great challenge, to take on.
Interesting. I think because you cared so much, this documentary is so powerful. It's just very smooth, and it's just, again, it resonated with me so much. I know you've touched upon this topic, but I'm just going to ask you the question again. What universal themes are explored in this documentary?
I think the first and biggest one is, respect. I've mentioned it. Community. How is it that we come together in this global village? Humility. I think, especially for the people, like myself, who have a very common name. I have no idea what that struggle has been like. And I think to be open to that, not to change my whole life around it, but I think an openness. And for me also, I'm someone who likes to look at things positively, and so I like to think of the celebration of differences. To me, that's a big aspect or a universal concept about this film that I really hope resonates. But about this idea of, it's not just difference, but there's, the more I can look at it with fascination, who are you? Oh, what does your name mean? Okay, then like, what is the pronunciation? Oh, wow, that's so different than what I know. I think to me that's such a fantastic journey to go on, as a human.
Yes, yes. America used to be called a melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
And really, America is this first laboratory to see if diversity works. But we don't melt, we are human. And so
Mm-hmm.
now it's called a beautiful mosaic.
Mm.
There's beauty in differences, and we should celebrate and understand and respect our differences.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard, I think it's a process. I think
Yes,
it's
it's a
very
process.
difficult. America very much, I think, like you said, is that kind of experiment, and I think we're still working through it, and still have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
But I think we are moving forward slowly, and that's something that gives me a lot of hope.
Yes, it's a lifelong process requiring
Mm-hmm.
continuous change, continuous growth. And in America, we're lucky we have laws to protect us. You cannot make fun of my name in the workplace. If you do, you will probably get fired.
Good. Yeah.
We have laws to protect all these protected categories, and your name is a nation of origin. And so, we do a lot of education, a lot of training in the workplace for adults, because again, it's human nature, and it's all learned, but we can unlearn it. Any upcoming films that you can tell us about? What should our audience expect to see in the future?
Um, as a filmmaker right now, I'm just predominantly focusing actually on this documentary and the promotion of it.
Mhm.
Now that I've opened up the avenue to documentary filmmaking, I'm curious about which routes to go on. But because I also work as an actor, and right now
Right.
I'm working on a series called Motherland Fort Salem, which is sci-fi, and that's something that's just for me to be in front of the camera and have so much fun. And that's going to be till the end of March, so I don't think I'd be looking at starting any new project before then. But actually, with my name is actually we're thinking of looking at other avenues of within that concept. So maybe people who are transgender, or artists who have had to change their names, or even people of foreign countries who come to America changing their names. Predominantly like a lot of Asian countries, people of Asian countries do that. You know, even my grandparents who are Chinese came here and changed their names from Tsingbo and Chao Cheng to John and Jane.
Mhm, mhm.
You know, I think there's so much in there to explore. So I'm actually
Yes.
strongly considering, doing, you know, like another short film or another season of it.
Wonderful. That's really good news. Tony Giroux, thank you so much for doing this, for the Q&A, for creating a learning opportunity for all of us about this very sensitive topic and helping us become more conscious, more respectful, and more inclusive individuals. Thank you. We wish you much success in all your future projects. Thank you everyone for being with us tonight. Enjoy the rest of the festival. Happy holidays and good night.
Thanks so much, Flora. Thanks, everybody.